Open the doors of the church, and today we are thinking about heaven's door. So Genesis chapter 2, a very short reading, 3 verses. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So we're thinking about opening the doors of the church, and we think about if you haven't been here and this is news to you about what it means to open the doors of the church. This is an image that God gave me back in 2019, I think, about the doors of the church and what it means. We can be part of a closed, unfruitful church. I don't want to be part of a closed, unfruitful church, but sometimes that happens. There are parts of us, collectively, individually, we close ourselves off. We get hurt. Things happen. We get tired. We get lazy. Life gets in the way. And we close ourselves, and we can be closed as a community. And that can be, so at the top there, the top of that image, there's the door to heaven. We can actually close ourselves off to God. We can close that. We can not open the scriptures. We can not hear his voice. We can close ourselves to God. In the middle is the door to our heart. So we could do all the things externally. We could get it all right. We could look like we're the perfect Christians on the outside. But if we are dead inside, if we are cold-hearted, stone-hearted, then what is the good of any of it? Down the bottom is the door to earth. We can be a holy huddle in here, but never go out and make a difference in the world. We are called to bring peace and light and love. We're called to love our neighbors. We're called to love our enemies, to bring blessing to those around us in the community. That is, your kingdom come on earth as in heaven. We're meant to bring something heavenly into earth. And then on the left is the connection door, the welcoming door. We can cut ourselves off from anyone new. I like the people that I know. I'll just talk to the people that I know and not welcome new people in. And then on the right there is the sending door. We could never send anyone out on mission. We could never send anyone out to share the good news, to overflow as a church and even plant churches. The reason this church is here, because there was an overflow. People moved out and were sent to start a church here in the first place. So we can be a closed church, or we can open the doors of the church, and we're starting with the door to heaven today, and we'll work through the others over the coming weeks. Do you know that the door to heaven has already been opened? It is open. God walked through it himself. And in so many ways, like you read this, and like this is the simplest thing ever. So simple that God would invite us into heaven's door in the simplest way you could imagine. And yet we don't often talk about it. We find it really hard and confusing. And for many of us, it's become a forgotten part of who we are as Christians. And that is Sabbath rest. Taking one day in every 7 and to remember that it's holy. That's a heaven's day, a special heavenly set-aside holy day. So simple. God gives us a gift. And he did it himself. It says there, so on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. He did something to a special day. And yet, for us, it feels difficult and confusing. So what do we do on that day? How is it different? Maybe we come to church, but then the rest of the day, what's different about it? It's not God blessed an hour and a half or however long we take on a Sunday. He blessed the whole thing, the whole day. What does it mean to set aside a whole day? And yet it's so life is complicated, isn't it? Have you tried setting aside a Sabbath? And then as soon as you do, something comes up, like sporting stuff, there's an event, and now emails, you can get emails and text messages, and okay, there's something work-related that I'm now thinking about. I mean, our girls are really into gymnastics, and so they have gym lessons during the week, fine, but now it's competition season. Most of those comps are on Saturday, fine. But they're not all on Saturday. Some of those comps are on Sunday. So that makes it complicated. How do we set aside a whole day and keep it holy, to remember it holy, because God has made it holy? And why is it Sunday? Why do we even do it Sunday? If you live around here, if you were around in this area yesterday, the Jewish people, the Jewish community around here, yesterday, Saturday, is their Sabbath, the Shabbat. So they're walking to synagogue. It's Saturday for them. So why are we hanging out here on a Sunday? Can anyone tell me the answer? Why Sunday? Why Christians on Sundays? Jesus rose on Sundays, on a Sunday. So we remember, Easter Sunday, he was risen. And so the first Christians would meet together on that first day, on the Sunday. They would break bread together on the Sunday. They would remember the Lord rose. And so the Sabbath shifted for Christians to a Sunday. And there's a long history of remembering the Sabbath on a Sunday, the Lord's Day, Resurrection Sunday. And that, for us as Christians, that's the heart of it. Where is our Sabbath rest? Here, I'll give you the answer. Our Sabbath rest is in the resurrection of Jesus. When we are in Jesus, when we're in the resurrection of Jesus, when we live in that, that's our Sabbath. Still, that doesn't really answer what I do on a Sunday, does it? About the gymnastics thing or whatever else comes up on a Sunday. So what does it mean? What does Sabbath rest mean? In the first instance, Sabbath rest just means stop, cease. Because that's what God did. He worked. He saw that it was good. He worked. He saw that it was good. He saw that it was very good. Did he keep on working? What kind of God would we worship if God just kept on working? Or just, the story was that God just kept working, and that was deleted. And God stopped and rested. What kind of God would we have in our minds? Who would we be worshiping? A workaholic. And that would create in us, well, then go and do likewise. We're created in the image of God. Well, go and just work endlessly. No, God stopped. He saw that it was very good, and he just stopped. And that says you too can stop. You can stop. You don't have to keep working, because we'll hear that voice, won't we? There is always internally, or there is someone else, there is always a demand, there's always a pressure, there's always something beeping at you or flashing at you or whatever it is, demanding your attention to just keep going. If you are a workaholic or you're married to a workaholic or someone in your family, if you've ever experienced a workaholic, you need to be told, just stop. It's okay. You don't have to keep going. Just stop. But it's more than that. It is more than just stopping. Rest is being fully present. God was fully present to his creation, to appreciate it, to marvel in it, to wonder in it, to say, this is very good, to delight in what has been made and done and finished. To stop, but to also be fully present. It's not just passive. There is something active or intentional about that stopping. To be present, to celebrate. It's a party of God's goodness. What else? Rest is freedom from slavery. So we find as the story of the Bible continues on that Sabbath rest is also about freedom from slavery. So when the 10 Commandments are given to God's people and you read them in Deuteronomy 5, when we get to the 4th commandment about the Sabbath, so this is Deuteronomy 5. There's quite a bit of a description of it. And in Deuteronomy 5, talking about the Sabbath commandment, it's saying your ox must also have a Sabbath. And your donkey must have a Sabbath. And your servants must have a Sabbath as well. Like everyone must stop. But there's a reason for it. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Sabbath celebration, Sabbath rest is tied up in freedom. Freedom from slavery. This is what Jesus picks up on. And part of our complication as Christians is what Jesus has said about the Sabbath. Because it looked like he worked on the Sabbath and he kind of pushed back on the people, the religious leaders of the day, about their observance of the Sabbath. And he broke all of their rules. And there's a wonderful story in Luke chapter 13. Let's go there. It's so good. Luke chapter 13, and I'll read you this story from verse 10 in Luke chapter 13. On a Sabbath, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said to her, "Woman, you are set free from your infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, the synagogue leader said to the people, "There are 6 days of work, so come and be healed on those days, not on the Sabbath." The Lord answered him, "You hypocrites, doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" It's a day of freedom. Freedom. Now, the tricky part for us then is, well, it's a day of freedom from all of the rules and all of the restrictions, a day of freedom to celebrate. But where does that leave us? Do we just go and do whatever we like? Well, rest is delight, but not whatever pleases you. Rest is delight, but not whatever pleases you. If you jump over to Isaiah 58, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's day, holy day, honorable. So if you delight in the idea of a Sabbath and you live out a Sabbath life, you delight in it, that's good, wonderful. And if you honor it by not going your own way and not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find your joy in the Lord. Sabbath rest is for delight, but not whatever pleases you. It's about freedom, but not as an excuse to do whatever you like. So what might that mean? What does it look like? Well, have a think now. Who's your slave master? Who is that voice or that notification or that something or other that is always asking you to work, do this, come back to this, and demanding your time and attention and resources? What is always prompting you to go? What is that thing? Who is that thing? Who is you? Now, be careful about naming someone, particularly if they're in the room, but because it's about you, it's about us and how we respond to it, because you are free. So how can you live in that freedom to not always work? Have a think now. What is holding you captured, enslaved, ensnared, trapped? And then what would it be like to stop and to delete that for a whole 24 hours? So our Jewish brothers and sisters, from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, 24 hours. What would that be like? To be free, to delight in the Lord, to be free that you can delight in the Lord for 24 hours. If it's a screen, how would you be free from the screen? A screen, any screen, for 24 hours. If it's food preparation, the demand of always preparing. That's why for many people for Sabbath, they will make sure that the food, our oven has a Sabbath setting on it. Did you know that? Our oven has a Sabbath setting on it. It's basically a timer, but it means the day before you can put in the dough into the oven, put the Sabbath setting on, and it will auto bake at the right time, so you've got fresh bread. It means you don't have to then do the labor of food preparation. If food preparation is part of what's enslaving you to work relentlessly, what would you need to do to cease? Is it work? Is it a conversation with your boss? Is it, I don't know, have a think now. Take a moment. What or who is that, and what demands are being placed on you? And now I want you to chat to the people around you. We're going to have a chat, have a little group. Don't name the person next to you, but have a chat to the people around you. What are some ideas, some positive ideas about how you could live some Sabbath principles? Is it one day in 7? Now keep in mind, this extends out to not just a weekly cycle, but this can extend out to yearly cycles. So 6 years of work and taking a sabbatical, taking a year off, or 6 decades, you retire maybe. what is that work, and rest cycle? What does that look like? And then think, what does it look like to do that as a community? Because you can make choices for yourself, but how do you walk together with others so that you can celebrate the Lord together in community, bringing glory to his name? So, break up into some groups, 4 or 5 people around you. What's something that's worked for you, that's been helpful for you? Some other ideas, something that's prompted in you. Share some ideas, and then we'll feed them back. So we'll do a group share, we'll feed them back, because we're all learning here together. We're all learning. If you're on Zoom and you've got some ideas, you can type them in the chat, and we'll collate our collective wisdom